All right, well, welcome back, and this is part 3 of series 1. And now we're going to talk about why we use marketing research. Some of this is going to overlap with what we just talked about in part 2, but I think we're going to drill down a little bit. You're going to find some of this really interesting. So, marketing research has many uses, and I think it's really important for you to understand as we're beginning to talk about this topic, just how robust it is. Marketing research can be used for all kinds of purposes, and some of them are obvious and some of them are not so obvious. And one of the goals of this class is to teach you how to use the basic tool set, although I can tell you, and you probably could assume, knowing that I have a master's degree in this topic, that there are many, many more applications than we're going to be able to get into in the scope of this basic survey. But the good news is that the basic tools are often the most widely used and the most effective. They can just be kind of time consuming, and so that's why it's good to be aware of them, to understand how they're used, and to be able to have enough knowledge about them so that even if you're not a provider of marketing research for your eventual job one day, you might be able to be a purchaser of it or overseer of it just by having enough knowledge about it. So, as you probably remember from our second lecture, we talked about the American Marketing Association definition of marketing research, and it talked about things like marketing research being used to identify market opportunities and problems, to monitor marketing performance, to improve marketing as a process, and to generate, refine, and evaluate potential marketing actions. Now I want you to look at that bottom point, generating, refining, and evaluating potential marketing actions such as selecting target markets, product research, pricing research, promotional research, and distribution research. Now the first point, selecting target markets, is really talking about understanding who your customers are. The other 4 points are really about your marketing mix, pricing, product, promotion, and place. So let's talk about each of these in a little bit of detail. Selecting target markets is really important because a lot of times it's not exactly obvious who your target market should be. Now, how do you generally figure out who your target market is? This is something that earlier in life, when I was a little bit more entrepreneurial and interested in maybe starting a business of my own, I really struggled with this question because it's easy to kind of make general statements about who your target market is, but to have a really good understanding of who they are or how you reach them, it's difficult. So let me give you an example. A few years ago, I was interested in starting a comic book company to develop educational comic books for kids. By the way, still hoping that I can do that one day, but I had to put that on hold for a little while. So in writing my business plan, I had to define a lot of different criteria about who these books that I was writing were being developed for. And you might think that it's easy to just say children of all ages, of all levels of education, in all places, but it's just not that easy, because when you're going and you're working with publishers and distributors and retailers, they want more information than that. They want to know things like, well, what age group of children exactly is this book appropriate for, and what educational level does it really support, and what kinds of students are going to be more or less interested in this. I mean, the books that I was developing had a science, biology, nature kind of feel to them. So they were something that wouldn't appeal necessarily to every child. Maybe they would appeal more to boys than girls, because the idea of them was to look at two different predators in nature and see them fight against each other. It was really, really cool series. But that might not appeal to girls as much as it appeals to boys. So right there, my target market becomes a little bit more narrow. And then, the words that I was using in the book, maybe I needed to dumb them down a little bit, because we were going to be targeting, people in the grades 2 through 4 as opposed to grades 3 through 6. Or maybe the comic book format that I was going to do these books in was going to be considered a little too above some of the younger kids, because it was so graphic. And these would really be targeted more at junior high school kids, in which case I needed to increase the content and make sure that it was more verbose in what it was trying to explain. My point is that selecting target markets is not an easy thing to do, and it's something that if unless you are going purely on intuition, you really need a lot of research to support. Now, how do you do that? Well, we're going to learn about a lot of methods in this class, but generally speaking, you start out with what we call an exploratory process, where you go and you look at existing research that's available. You also might conduct formal or informal qualitative research, where you go and ask people what they think and let them really give you detailed explanations of what their thoughts are. And then you might move on to more structured quantitative research, where you're really trying to identify numerical assessments of a population or a sample, so you can have a little bit more structured of data that you can offer to the different folks that you're trying to pitch your product to. Having a lot of information on your target market is good, because it shows you've done your homework and your due diligence, but B, it gives you a focus. If you know exactly who you're focusing on, and you know what that typical consumer is like, and what they want and what they don't want, and what they like and what they need, and what they value, you are going to be a lot more successful with what you're doing than if you just take a kind of cast the nets approach and hope that by pushing something out to the mass market that you're going to be successful. And an off-cited statistic, I have never been able to pin this down to where it comes from. And an off-cited statistic is that 9 out of every 10 new products fail. I don't know that it's quite that high. I've heard 8 out of 10. I've heard 95 out of 100. I've heard all kinds of different numbers, and I've never been able to find any real good data to support it. But I will tell you this, more products that are introduced fail than not fail. And a lot of times it's because there's just not a real good understanding of who's going to purchase them. So selecting target markets is a very, very valuable use of marketing research. Now let's talk about product research. Product research can come in many different forms as well. We could be talking about new product development, where we're trying to have an understanding of what a product needs to be before we put it out. We could be talking about product refinement. We have a product that's been successful, but its sales are starting to flag. Can we find a way to improve it and reintroduce it to pick up on sales, or to find maybe a new niche in the marketplace? That's a form of product research. Maybe looking for line extensions. I work with companies sometimes that are interested in taking a successful product and in tweaking it to become a different product but use the same brand, and then to be able to capture a group of people that might not have bought it otherwise because it didn't have quite the feature set that they were looking for. And of course, product research can also involve studying other products that have been successful, or other ideas that have been successful, and then trying to adapt your own product to that. Pricing research is something that a lot of organizations want. They're often not as happy with results as they would like to be, because the results aren't always reflective of reality. But there are price points that are good, and there are price points that aren't so good. And research can really help you to identify kind of what your ideal range is, and what the market will support. Now, it's not perfect. I would say pricing research is one of those areas where you have to be really careful what you trust, because people have a tendency to tell you in research studies what they will do and what they won't do, and then when you actually go and watch their behavior, it doesn't match what they told you. There have been a lot of times where products have been introduced on the assurances of people in focus groups that they would definitely buy those products, and then the products don't succeed. So you have to be careful with pricing research about what you believe, but there are lots of different ways to conduct pricing research. Some of them are more trustworthy than others, some of them are more reliable than others, and definitely they can give you an edge on making sure that when you come into a market that you have an appropriate price point for your product or service. Promotional research, this covers all aspects of promotion. So advertising is the big one that we would think about, but also just understanding the potential for promotion, or understanding the messaging that you need to deliver, understanding the effectiveness of sales promotions that you might offer. All of those things fall under that umbrella. And promotional research can be really tricky too. There's an adage. I'm not sure exactly where it comes from. I've heard it attributed to many different sources, but the idea that we know that 50% of the money that we spend on advertising works and 50% of it doesn't work. The problem is we don't know which 50%. The idea being that advertising and promotion often have questionable effectiveness, but they do seem to do something. They do seem to work. And unless you're talking about direct response advertising, like those commercials that they'll show on TV where they're showing off some wonderful product, and then at the end it says, call now, quantities are limited, and you have to call in or go to the website right away and order those products. Well, you can track the effectiveness of that advertising because the consumer is going immediately from the advertising to the purchase point. But you can't really track the effectiveness of advertising for products like Coca-Cola or for McDonald's or for Reebok shoes or things like that, because they're not intended to get a customer up off their feet and going out to purchase that product right away. Rather, they're intended to kind of position a brand or to inform the customer about something or to give them kind of a mental cue that maybe later on they need to consider that product, things like that. So it's really difficult to track the effectiveness of promotion, but it is possible and quite advisable to test messaging and to test ideas and to test concepts in a way to just kind of understand how they resonate with consumers. So I never, ever recommend using marketing research to weigh concepts against each other in terms of finding out which ones consumers prefer. This is a mistake that a lot of people in the advertising industry make, where they'll put together 3 or 4 concepts and then they'll test them in front of consumers, and they'll kind of take a winner takes all approach. Whichever one the most people like is the one we're going to go forward with, and that's not a good idea. First of all, it really stymies creativity and really can upset the creative people. But secondly, and more importantly, research is not often about democracy. It's not often about voting. It's not often about saying, because the most people feel this way, therefore that's the direction we need to go in. That's actually a really crude use of research. It's fine for political polling where you have a limited number of choices, but it's not a good idea for marketing research. What marketing research is better used for is in understanding what is resonant with consumers and what is objectionable to them. So, for example, when I do advertising concept testing, I often am looking for trigger words. We were doing some healthcare testing on some different healthcare ads, and there was an ad concept that we were looking at that was talking about a robot. It's called the Da Vinci robot. It's a really cool surgical tool that can allow surgeries to be done very precisely and with a minimum of discomfort compared to the traditional methods. So it's really, really cool, and the marketing department wanted to talk about it, and we put it in front of consumers, and we weren't worried about whether or not they liked the ad. We were worried about how they felt about the ad, and a lot of them did not feel good because they didn't like the idea of science fiction and robots and things like that. To them, it felt cold and impersonal and not real. And what they really wanted to hear from their healthcare provider was things that were warm and personal and reassuring, and maybe that even had a spiritual component. And robots just don't do that. So hearing about advanced technology, they were excited about, but hearing about robots, not so much. So that was a trigger word. That was something that we could detect. And what we could advise to the client was not get rid of the robot ad. It was, if you're going to talk about technology, don't talk specifics, talk generally, because people don't need to hear what the technology is, they just need to hear that you have it. And that was a really good insight that they were able to get. Well, that's just a great example of what promotional research can be used for and how it can really be helpful. We're going to talk later on in this class about other forms of promotional research that you can do as well, using test markets, using predictive analytics, all sorts of wonderful, cool things. But it's really quite an exciting topic. And then finally, distribution research, trying to figure out where the right place is for your service or your product. It can be important. And whether you're talking about where it goes in a shelving arrangement in a grocery store, or whether you're talking about which geographic markets you need to be in, whether you're talking about the amount of availability that you need to have, things like that. There's all kinds of questions that you can answer through distribution research. And also distribution research can be very concerned with the supply chain. A lot of research that I do is actually business to business, where I'm not talking to consumers, I'm talking to people that are in a supply chain, in a service or product interaction. And those interactions can be really important because they can disrupt the effectiveness of an organization if the supply chain isn't functioning where it needs to be. So having good understanding of all of these topics, target markets, product research, pricing research, promotion research, and distribution research, these are all really big areas that you can probe and explore. with marketing research, and they're all very important. The real problem that you have once you really get into marketing research is not whether or not you should do these kinds of research, it's prioritizing which ones you need to do the most. And that's something we're going to talk about a lot in this class, is how you understand what the problems are that you really need to solve, and then you can narrow these things down to the problems that you're actually looking at. Well, something else that we need to talk about is the difference between what we call basic research and applied research. So basic research is probably what you're most familiar with if you've ever thought about research, because it's the research that comes primarily from the fields of science. And marketing research is derived from these fields. Marketing research is not necessarily scientific. It can be, it should be, ideally, but it's not necessarily scientific. But basic research is based on the idea that when we're conducting research, we're really trying to build a body of knowledge. So this is what a lot of scholars and academics do. They come up with a question that they call a hypothesis, and they think it through, and then they figure out a way to test it with a research method, and they get data and they analyze it, and they ultimately decide whether or not that hypothesis passes, and they can use that hypothesis and others that they research to build up a theory and build up a field, and then they have information that they can use to build a science around. Well, applied research is what most marketing researchers do, and it's a little bit different. So applied research is when we have the intention of supporting a decision that needs to be made to solve a problem. And the reason that we do that in marketing research is because we have a limited amount of time and money and resources that we can put into research problems. And there's always a lot of things that we would like to know more about that we're never going to be able to know unless we really put a lot of time and money into them. And they might even just give us a limited amount of advantage in what we're trying to do. But there are often very specific situations where we don't have enough information and we would like to have more, where marketing research can really help us out. And that's why applied research and marketing research go so well together. Because the idea is that we're really looking for something that we don't know, that we want to know, so that we can solve a problem, we can minimize risk, we can maximize reward, as I've been saying, and ensure that we're making the right decisions. Nobody wants to be behind a failed decision, okay? Nobody wants to look bad and to have to eat crow when they admit that the choices that they made were the wrong ones. Marketing research, applied research, help to minimize that potential, and they also help us to be able, when we do make a bad decision, to maybe be able to evaluate why we made a bad decision, or maybe to be able to anticipate how not to make a bad decision in the future. Because we can go back and look at the data and see where we went wrong. So anyhow, basic research is done for knowledge's sake. That's what you need to know. Whereas applied research is done to solve a problem. Well, with that said, I'm going to move on to the next section.